A very simple video today, just a little guide to changing or cleaning the air filter on a Toyota Vitz, also known as a Toyota Yaris or Echo, also a Daihatsu Charade in Europe. Anyway, this is the little 1.3 litre engine, and everything's very small and cute. The air filter lives inside the air intake box on the top of the engine. The air intake itself is very simple. There's just the intake mouth stuck over here in space in front of the battery, and it leads directly to the top of the motor before going on over to the intake manifold. Getting at the filter is so simple it barely needs explaining, but just so you don't start unscrewing bolts that you don't need to, here's what you do. At the top of each side are these clips. They're the only things that you need to undo and release. They just pull off by finger. Once they're loose, the airbox is basically free. It can be jiggled free in a way. And the air intake flexi tube will let you sort of bend it around and open it up enough to get in it. There's no need to unbolt the tube itself. Straight away, you can see the filter. It's just this simple and I should say cheap paper version that sits at the edge of the box. Get rid of that. And the first thing I suggest doing is giving the inside of the airbox a bit of a clean. It'll probably be dusty. Just a wipe down with a clean rag is enough. One thing to look out for when you're doing this is oil. If this area and maybe the filter itself has what looks like engine oil coating it, which would be black and sticky, that could be a symptom of engine problems. But a bit of dirtiness like what you see here is just normal. So the filter is this thin paper arrangement. You could replace it with a new one if you like. They're not expensive. But honestly, air filters in most cars get replaced unnecessarily. And the reality is that even very old and very dirty looking filters do not measurably affect the power or efficiencies of engines. They're engineered to work in quite bad environments. So unless you're clogging it up in truly awful air all the time, the best thing to do is just give it a bit of a clean and put it back in. The exception would be any physical damage if it's crushed or broken somehow and or holed and letting through unfiltered air. Then you'd want to get a new one. But for my part, I just gave this one a quick vacuum. You want to do this from the air intake side, not the engine side, because you're sucking out the dirt in the opposite direction that it went in. Better would be compressed air from the other side, blasting it out, but for that you would need an air compressor. And then you take your clean or new filter and you put it in. The thicker side of the filter is the air intake side, and you just want to make sure you situate the edges correctly in the frame. You don't want to leave any gaps where it's not positioned properly. Then put the airbox back in place while making sure that the filter doesn't jump out in the process. To do this, the only thing you need to focus on are the little clips at the bottom. To begin with, the male clip on the airbox side has to go into the female parts on the other side, one left and right, and you have to push it down into those before you try to mate up the airbox halves for the spring clips. Now, once you've done that, the faces will come together properly. There's a tiny bit of pressure required to push them together because you are compressing the edges of the filter, which is what seals it up airtight, but not much pressure. And the spring clips will line up with their brackets, as you can see. And that's really about it. When you next start the engine, just check that everything's okay. Check that everything sounds okay. If anything's wrong with an air intake in front of the throttle body, it'll usually sound different. So just listen for any unusual whooshing or whistling. And this sounds fine, so job done. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Have fun.